Hey YouTube, welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be talking about what I call kratom, but the actual pronunciation is kratom. It's the Mitragyna Speciosa tree. But before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to ask you to please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Now, as you know from some of my previous videos, I have been suffering from numb and painful hands that is now going up my arm and shooting down funny bone-like sensation shocks that is either carpal tunnel, ulnar nerve palsy, or my discs in my spine, and the doctors can't figure it out. So I do not want to ask for a raise in any of my medications or anything like that because they look at you like you're a viper sitting in their room. So right now in the office, you're like a viper just wanting pain pills. That's how they look at you, whether it's appropriate that you are on pain medication or not. That's just where we're at right now in the opioid epidemic. So with the opioid epidemic, there are a lot of all of the real drug addicts have pretty much gone to the street where cheap fentanyl and carfentanil is in abundance and it's cheap. They've all gone to that. They're having the time of their lives doing that. And the only people, for the most part, that are still that are just suffering now are the legitimate chronic pain patients. Well, there is an alternative. It's natural medicine. It's called kratom or kratom. It is not an opioid, but it works on the opioid receptors in the body. And it is actually related to coffee. So it's not an opioid at all. And in fact, a lot of people are having success transitioning from traditional opioids to an atypical opioid and then tapering off the kratom. Because kratom, though, there's a lot of misinformation about it. Some people will tell you, well, it's related to coffee and it's natural, so it's as harmless as coffee. Not true. Kratom comes with the exact same dependency issues as a typical opioid because it does work on those same receptors. But but people transition from traditional opioids to kratom relatively seamlessly. It doesn't have the same, like, you don't see people nodding out. The millions of Americans are using it, and it's got a fascinating story. The Food and Drug Administration and the DEA had a fit when they found out about it, and they wanted to make an emergency scheduling and make it illegal and all this stuff. People showed up. I forgot if it was to the front lawn of the White House or if it was to the front lawn of Congress, whatever. They showed up en masse. Even members of Congress were like, wait a second, I take kratom. So millions of Americans are taking kratom, and we're not dropping dead. Now, they're desperately trying to find some deaths associated with kratom, but the deaths seem to be when people mix kratom with other drugs, or one of the guys that they tried to, because he had kratom in his system, they overlooked the fact that the dude also had a bullet hole. But, yeah, don't let pesky details get in the way of trying to skew data, right? So kratom is related to coffee. It is a leaf. Most people take it either by brewing it into a tea or by just simply tossing and washing. You get your serving size into a little cup, dump it in your mouth, drink it with water, and 20 minutes later, you're wrapped in a warm blanket of pain relief. Joe Rogan actually takes kratom for intense workouts, recovery, and stuff like that. So it is really good stuff, but just be warned. It does come with the same addiction potential as anything else. And it's relatively cheap. But I do want to say that you want to get your kratom from a vendor, such as I get mine from a vendor called Krabot or Krabbit, however you say it. And because these people, it's third-party lab tested for any type of microbials or heavy metals. In some cases, it's steam cleaned to make sure that there's no little bacteria or anything like that. So that it's relatively safe to use, and you don't get something with an inappropriate amount of heavy metals or some type of mold or fungus on it, because it does come from Malaysia, Indonesia, Ketapang, Bali, Vietnam, Thailand. That area of the world is where it grows wild. And you also want to make sure that your kratom is harvested responsibly, because there in that world there are they're called kratom bandits, and the rainforests are full of these trees, and some of these trees are hundreds of years old. This stuff has been used as natural medicine in that area of the world for thousands of years, and it has now hit the United States of America, and millions of Americans are using it, and it's very popular. It doesn't seem to be um, impairing. With that being said, never take kratom and drive your car. That would be stupid. Don't do that. Um, so as far as a harm reduction, my opinion would be, as far as harm reduction, there's less harm in kratom than there are in traditional opioids. It's pretty neat stuff as long as you are mature with it and understand that it does come with the same dependency issues. Now, there are 3 or 4 different types of kratom, and with those types, there's also subtypes. A lot of the kratom is basically they'll call like a white elephant, which means that it's a kratom tree with huge leaves that look like elephant ears, or a red Bali, which would be from Bali, the geographic location, whether it's Vietnam, Thailand, Hong Kong, um, Indonesia, or Miangda, what they call pimp grade. You really can't go wrong. They're all very similar. So there are the white variety, the red variety, the green variety, and the yellow variety. And again, they're all very similar. Whites are more traditionally more stimulating, whereas reds are more kind of like a traditional opioid, kind of slow. Whereas a green would be in the middle, and a yellow is fermented and it slightly alters the alkaloids. So as you kind of trial and error with yourself, you will kind of get your favorites. But if you're looking for a place to start, I would say start with Amiangda and go from there. They're all very, very similar. And some people say, well, that strain didn't work for me, or that. But to me, I haven't found a strain that they're all very similar that hasn't worked for me. I am using it a little bit now just because of the situation that I'm in, and I am in so much pain and torture that it has given me a little bit of relief. I am making sure that I don't become dependent on it and that I keep my dose low, because I don't want to have to deal with that after the fact. But right now, while I'm going through this, it's unbearable. So kratom is a crutch that I am using right now to get me to my doctor appointments and to work. They just need to fix me, please. So, so you have the white, the red, the green. White's uplifting, red's slower, probably more pain relieving properties. Green's in the middle. They're all very similar. Um, just know that some people are allergic to kratom, but many Americans take it safely and don't have any problems. But if you do take it, make sure you have your blood works checked, because there are some people, just like there are some people that are allergic to peanuts, there are some people that seem to be allergic to kratom, and it can destroy their liver. It's rare, but it has happened. I've had so many blood works lately, and my blood works are fine. So, yeah, just some stuff to keep in mind about that. Make sure it's responsibly harvested. Get it from a USA vendor that does, such as Kraybot, that does third-party lab testing to make sure there's no molds, heavy metal, stuff like that in it. You want to start with your dose low. I would recommend starting with maybe 1 or 2 grams. And just remember that you can always take more, but you can't take less. The cool thing about kratom is that if you're just going to try to get high off it, you're going to be disappointed because it has a ceiling. If you take too much, the only thing you're going to do is get yourself sick. So you want to start with a very low dose and find your sweet spot. And you remember, you can always take more, but you can never take less. And if you take too much, you can get sick, get nauseous, get the dreaded wobbles, which are like kind of like you just get dizzy and your eyes start kind of bouncing around, and it can be scary, but the wobbles pass. It does now. Kratom does not seem to depress the breathing like traditional opioids, so it's pretty cool in that sense to where you're probably not gonna overdose on it unless if you just get sick. Um, there's a saying in the kratom world that more is less. Sometimes you get better effects off of less than if you just try to take a whole bunch. So it's, as long as, there's even with like kratom associations and stuff, they try to ask, well, is kratom addicting? Well, everything's addicting. Caffeine's addicting. Sugar's addicting. That is a huge sidestep. I just wish they would be honest with people and just say that it's really neat stuff. It works. Um, it works great for pain, for anxiety, for depression, but it does come with the same addiction potential as traditional opioids. I just wish that they would be honest about that. So when everybody showed up on, to protest kratom being emergency scheduled in an unprecedented thing, the Food and Drug Administration and the DEA backed off, and it is now legal in the United States of America to take this stuff, to have it shipped to your house, except in a couple of states and some counties that have made it illegal. I guess they got nothing better to do than to schedule something that literally isn't a problem. If anything, it might be a tool to help battle the opioid epidemic, but because it does seem to have harm reduction potential in response to some of the other traditional opioids, even the opioids that you can get from a pharmacy and stuff like that. You can really mess yourself up on and overdose on. So yeah, that's just it's a tool. It's another item in creation that has been put here for us to use responsibly, with consequences built in if you choose to abuse it. And those consequences being dependency, withdrawal, stuff like that. So you got to be careful. And so that's just a little video about what I wanted to say about kratom, or kratom as they call it. Now, another thing that you got to be careful of, and why it's important to get it from a reputable vendor such as Krabot, however you say it, is because the actual tree is called Mitragyna Speciosa. There's also a very similar species called Mitragyna parvifiola and Mitragyna javanica. Now, sometimes, and they all look very similar, so the farmers and the harvesters and the people that go into the rainforest to get it know how to identify these plants, but every once in a while some of the javanica or parvifiola can get mixed in with the batches, and those do give effects, but it can make it real jittery. So every once in a while there can be a bad batch that goes through that won't really hurt you, but it's not going to make you feel good. And some farmers actually farm it with their own trees, and they know exactly what they're growing. They've been doing it year after year after year, and a lot of people in that area of the world take it for working long hours, for staying up all night harvesting rubber from rubber trees and stuff like that. And it's a good little, in low doses it seems to be a stimulant, and in higher doses it seems to be more of its opioid properties come out. Again, you have to find your sweet spot. So some of them are farmers, where they actually farm their own trees and they're really good at what they do. Other times there's just collection points, kind of like here where we recycle cans. People just go out into the rainforests and get and harvest it, and then they go back and sell it to a collection point. Then it gets just labeled by the different drying methods, which is the white, the red, and the green, and the color of the vein in the middle of the leaf, and it just all kind of gets mixed in together. So sometimes if one of the wrong species gets mixed in, it can be an accident, or it can be just somebody mixing a little bit of the other stuff in to try to make weight so that they can make more money. It can be either one. It can be an honest mistake, or it can be some unscrupulous people trying to add in, the wrong species, hoping that nobody will notice. And so it's important to get it from a reputable vendor And from the United States, they get it through customs and everything else. Because sometimes customs will, well, this isn't a that you get a what's called a love letter from customs, and they'll be like, oh, this isn't approved for human consumption. Then you got to respond to them and say, well, yeah, I understand that, but yes, I claim it and that's mine. Will you please send it to me? And okay. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to get it through customs. So let the vendors do that. That's what they're paid to do. They test it, make sure there's no heavy metals, molds, stuff like that, so that you can be as safe as possible when you're using it. And so, yeah, that's what I know about Kratom. It's a good tool, but it's something to be used as a responsible adult, and not something just to be taken 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because there are consequences built in to the tree leaf for that. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great day, people.